from these two Italian submarines. They attack at fours. What can they do? They can both score hits. Oh, that is nasty. This is Axis and Allies North Africa with our Mod houseful on the 2 or Less channel, video number 2 in this series, and we got to start off with correcting a corruption, quite a big corruption actually, but I can give you any excuse you like as to why that happened. The best thing to say was that, well, I was being a bit of a donkey. He always calls me that. What happened was, and I put a little message up on the last video at about 3/4 of the way through, when the Brits had their non-com movement, it was getting very convoluted, very messy in my head and very messy on the board. So I reset the board and somehow, and I got no idea how I managed to do that, I replaced the one Italian submarine that was in there with a destroyer. I cannot think how that happened, but I did do that. If I can fix that mistake, I shall do. That's been done there. However, after that was the Italian combat round, and they scored a hit with their submarine. It could not have gone onto the aircraft that we applied it to, so I have to put that aircraft back on there and remove the one destroyer from there. It did affect, obviously, the thinking the Italian player would have had, but I think analysing the last video, analysing, big word, looking at the last video, I think Italy would still have made those same choices from that moment on if that was a submarine rather than a destroyer. So that's cleared that out of the way. We can get on with turn number 9 with the UK. Before we get going, may I mention that I make these videos in aid of a charity called Cure Parkinson's. You can guess what they're trying to do. There is a link to them below this video, one in the About section on the channel page. If you happen to have a spare $1, you're a yak or a donkey, you can send to them. I'm sure that they would appreciate it. Let's get on with the Brits. Advanced convoys, phase number 1. The Brits still yet haven't got their transport ships into the mortar convoy zone. They can't score any points. So we go on to the requisition reinforcements phase for the Brits. They are purchasing for themselves with 34 RPs, 1 cruiser and 3 destroyers, 8, 16, 24, 34. That's about the best buy we can get, taking into account all the monies that we got available. I have found you are always wanting to have 1 or 2 RPs more, which is always a good sign when you're just that one annoying moment short of your purchases every time you go to them. Let's stop waffling and get on with the UK's combat move and attack declaration. Clearly, we're thinking half a turn ahead of ourselves, getting the transport ships into mortar in the non-com phase, and we're going to need some protection for them. We also want to clear out this Algiers convoy zone if we can. Our 2 fighters that are in here on this boat can just drop into the water here and say, we are attacking you, combat phase, and the 2 fighters from the next convoy zone along, Tunis, can come off of that boat into there, so as they can get involved in this attack as well. Should we choose to use our major heavy fleet that's just been born off of Gibraltar into here, then it's going to have to stop at the end of the combat phase and can't go through to the mortar convoy zone to protect our transport ships. So we're going to take a punt and say that we don't need our big booming battleships and our cruiser from Sea Zone 3 for this attack. We're going to hope that our 4 fighters do enough. Our aircraft carrier only attacks a 1 anyway. We're going to get there in a minute. We are going to move these 2 submarines backwards into Sea Zone number 4 and say that this is going to be enough to damage that lot in there. And we're going to take our 1 cruiser that's in Sea Zone number 8, again going forward again. We've lost 2 cruisers in this battle beforehand. We're going to try and get this 1 battleship out of the way into Sea Zone 16, kill the battleship and block off this exit route for the Italians at the same time. I hope that's all pretty clear and not too confusing, although I'm confusing myself all over the place. So these are combat units, they're combat units. These haven't moved yet at all. So we look at what the Italians would do from here. they've got 4 planes bearing down on them and 2 submarines. Rest the camera. I would suggest that because the Brits cannot see the submarine without their destroyer, the submarine is not going to be affected by these 4 fighters. Just 2 submarines are going against it. 2 at 4 versus 1 at 2. Would the submarine drop out of the way? I think it might do. I think that the Italians might want that submarine saved for later on, because obviously the money is going down really from turn 7, turn 8 onwards. So I think they're going to try to preserve that submarine by dropping it out of the way. That's going to be put on its side. It's no longer in that space to be able to be hit. They are sacrificing their cruiser, leaving them to it. I'm sorry, but we salute you. Let's start rolling some dice for that. We're going to have these 4 British fighters all flying in at 4s, trying to hit that one Italian-Japanese cruiser. And they've scored 2 hits out of that. That one cruiser goes down. No need to roll any more dice. And in defence, cruisers defend at a 4. They attack at 5, defend at a 4. And it scores a 6. It's entirely missed. So that's the end of the combat in that Algiers convoy zone. This guy here is taken off the board, and the submarine is glugging around. We can look at number 16 now. This is a stand-up knockdown fight between just the 2 units that are in there. We have the 1 British cruiser going in at a 5, Big and Brave, HMS Big and Brave, versus the 1 Italian-Japanese battleship that's in at a 6. So it's a 5 on the brown dice, 6 on the black dice. Come on, you Brits, redress this balance from these terrible dice rolls we had from before. And they have done. Wow. So finally, the dice are getting a bit more warmed up now as far as the Brits are concerned. That unit comes off the board. It is lost and gone. We move on to the non-combat phase for the Brits. We can now take our 2 transport ships into sea zone number 12, adjacent to Malta. I think I've called that sea zone 15 more than once because it's 15 RPs up there, but that's just, yeah, ignore that. The 1 aircraft carrier can move into there as well and take the 2 planes that was in the Tunis convoy zone into Algiers convoy zone 1, 2, 3 and land onto there to give ourselves some protection onto that big ship. Nicely done. And then we can move at least 2 of our battleships into that mortar convoy zone as well. These go 1, 2, 3, 4. So we've got a massive amount of protection there in our mortar convoy zone itself. And the 1 cruiser that was left there from sea zone 3 will move across into the Algiers convoy zone to meet up with the 2 submarines, and the carrier can collect its 2 planes that was on there from beforehand. I think everything looks good. It's not as strong as I would like it to be in the Algiers convoy zone, especially as it can be get toable from Italy, but they might want to come down and bash sea zone 16 to start getting their transport ships into Tripoli convoy zone. We see what they do when we come to their thinking. After that, we get the British deploy reinforcements on the board. We've got their 3 destroyers, much needed destroyers. They can start spotting those Italian submarines, and their 1 cruiser into sea zone 3 as well. End of the British turn. Let me have a little bit of a sit down, a little bit of think about the Italian turn number 9 coming up shortly. Okay, turn number 9 for Italy. I've had a little sit down, a little think about this, and a little rethink. There's no advanced convoy phase for Italy because there is no transport ships adjacent to Tripoli convoy zone. The rethink has been exactly how aggressively we're going to be playing this game for the next couple of rounds at least. Italy's purchase was going to be 1 transport ship, 2 destroyers and a cruiser. 32 RPs this time round. 10 plus 16 plus 5 makes 31. They're leaving 1 RP behind. But I think because of the plan we got for a round or two ahead of time, we're going to take this one cruiser out of it and replace that with a fajita. More of that in a moment. We'll put those into the reinforcement zone over here. We go on to their combat move and attack declaration. The Italians want to get these transport ships via the Straits of Messina down through 16, 15 and into Tripoli convoy zone. They're going to be making a two-pronged move for that. Obviously, all that stuff getting down here will be non-combat. We want to have some protection when we get there. So, to that end, big and brave, we're going to be taking 2 submarines from sea zone number 11, 10, 9, whatever it is up here, out of the way, 10. And they're going to go 1, 2, 3 spaces into attacking the British guys in Malta. It's a suicide mission, isn't it? They're not going to be surviving there very long. But again, there are no British destroyers in there to protect this fleet with. So any damage that they can do, surprise striking, will be going on to some very expensive British units, possibly damaging 2 battleships in one foul move. They're also going to have to try to take out this one British cruiser over here in Sea Zone 16. They're going to put their 2 bombists over there as well. Of course they're going to do. They're both going at 6s. We can use our fighters as well. I don't want to risk our fighters versus this fleet in Sea Zone number 12 because they're likely to get themselves mashed there, and we want the protection for later on. They can fly 1, 2, 3, 4, so and meet up with the carrier when it comes through there eventually. So they're going to go into this battle as well versus this one cruiser. More of the elongated plan in a second or two. Let's get this battle out of the way first. We do the one in Malta convoy zone straight up. Because these are submarines, because there's no destroyers, it's surprise striking from these 2 Italian submarines. They attack at 4s. What can they do? They can both score hits. Oh, that is nasty. We're going to put damage onto 2 of these British battleships. They are going to be fuming with that. They were all shiny, freshly painted to them. Now they've got themselves in a bit of a mess there. So, in reply from that, 2 British battleships are going to be attacking at 6s. And both missing, well, defending at 6s actually. We've got the 2 at 1 for the transport ships. And they scored 1 hit out of that. And our 1 aircraft carrier has got a defence roll of 2. Can it do anything to redress this balance? It can't. So, 1 submarine goes under. We can now look at this battle into Sea Zone 16, just up here. We have got our 2 big booming bombers, plus 2 fighters. They're attacking at 6s, they're attacking at 4s. 6s are on the highest register, the darker dice. And plenty enough hits out of that. This one cruiser, once again, we're losing cruisers left, right and centre, the Brits. It's going to get a defensive roll at a 4 and scores a hit. Now, that's a bit of a quandary for us because part of our plan was taking one of these bombers for them. We have bought a fighter, but I don't want to leave our carrier too vulnerable. We're going to have to take that hit on a bomber. Sorry, Italy, but, well, you had the best of it over in the Malta convoy zone, so you're going to be taking a bit of a worst of it there as well. In the non-com phase, because this area is now free, we can move our transport ships 1, 2, 3, 4 into the Tripoli convoy zone. We can fly our carrier 1, 2, 3, 4 into there as well. These fighters have come off of the carrier, 1, 2, done his battle, 3, 4. They can land onto here as well. And with extra defensive modes, they can go down to Tripoli, into here, with 2 cruisers and 1 destroyer. It's quite a powerful fleet there. There's our 4 combat units and our 2 transport ships. That's the maximum we can put into there. This one bomber is flown 1, done its bashing, 2, 3, 4, 5, and can land into Crete as well. Crete being right over there, because once the Brits do score their 2 points in the mortar convoy zone, as I mentioned in the introduction, they do not get removed from the board like the Italians would do. They can carry on down to sea zone 31 eventually and score 2 more points in there. Italy don't want that. But because the Brits have got their 1 bomber here over in Cyprus that's been lurking like a lurky thing who lurks, it can fly 1, 2, 3, have a bash at these guys in Crete. Bombers attack at 6, defend at 1. This guy is really, really vulnerable. So as part of our big cunning plan is in our non-combat, in our deploy reinforcements phase, where we can deploy our fighters, because the Axis forces can do this, directly into Crete. So as we've now got a defensive unit at 5 and a defensive unit as 1, so the Brits would be less inclined to want to bash these guys in Crete with their bomber from Cyprus. The other 2 units going onto the board, or 3 units going onto the board, is 1 more transport ship and 2 destroyers into Sea Zone 10, ready for their traverses through, or their distraction for whatever the British fleet want to try to do with their Algiers convoy fleet, and their 1 big fleet there in the mortar convoy zone. So it's all up in the air right now. That is the end of turn number 9. I will see you in turn number 10 with the Brits upcoming shortly. Okay, on with the UK in turn number 10. A lot of thinking has been happening beforehand. Not all of it was sensible, but it is me. We start off with the advanced convoy phase. The Brits can finally, hooray, score 2 points for their guys getting into mortar, which means we can adjust our tracker up here. We just step around and move that counter back down 1, 2 points. And we're now at an even keel for both sides. But the difficulty has been how we can move units through these sea zones, some of which are hostile, some which aren't hostile because submarines don't make these sea zones hostile. But we have our stack limit of 4, as you know. Stack limits are only enforced at the end of each phase. Our purchase is going to be a cruiser, a couple of destroyers, and a transport ship, because we figure we got enough navy at the moment so we can be a little bit more bolder with our attempts at scoring points versus what the Italians can do. We are leaving 1 RP behind, 31 out of the 32 that's available. I was thinking about getting a plane rather than the cruiser, because I like having this carry up here in Sea Zone 6 or Sea Zone 8, because a plane in Gibraltar can fly 1, 2, 3, 4 and reinforce any losses that we take. But the submarine being here that we can't see is a bit of a pest for the Brits. You've got to say that. So enough of that waffling. We're going to look at the combat move and attack declarations by the Brits. Going along with that will be dividing up which forces aren't getting involved in any attacks. We are going to be not attacking. These are going to be non-combat movements with both these battleships. I haven't 100% decided where they're going, but they're not getting involved in this attack. Similarly, nor is the aircraft carrier. That doesn't get involved in the attack either. The 2 planes are going to stay in there because we want to be able to see this submarine. To do that, we are taking one of our previously purchased destroyers. It can go 1, 2, 3, 4. We're our stack limit now of 4 combat navy units in there, but we can at least see this 1 submarine. Our 2 transport ships that did drop off in mortar can also move on the turn when they drop off. That's in the rules. If we didn't have rules, what would you be? Cats. So we're hoping that this is going to be a successful attack for the Brits, and these fighters will be able to move on from there, but they'll be able to move on anyway. So that will be a combat move into here for 1 definite combat. We would also very much like to be able to get this submarine out of the way. And if we start attacking into Sea Zone 6 Algiers convoy zone, all that's going to happen is the submarine's going to drop out of the way and just sit around being an absolute pest. So all that the Brits can do really is go up into sea zone number 10. It'll be big and brave going up into there with this fleet. 1, 2, 3, which is exactly what we're going to do. Big and brave. This lot all fly up here in the combat movement and are going to try to bash this these amount of Italian reinforcements and be really quite vulnerable to any kind of reprise from them. We can then move these guys into here and we can say get the hell out ski with at least a number of these units. We think it's got to be 1 destroyer, attacks at 4, defends at 2. That should give us a little bit of an advantage. And the other 2 units we want to take through into sea zone number 8, hoping just to be a bit of a distraction and a pest for the Italian fleet later on. So let's look at these 3 combats and keep our fingers crossed for the Brits. We have got in the Algiers convoy zone number 6, we have got 1 British destroyer rolls in at a 4 and the submarine defends at a 2. It can't hide away this time. And the Brits have scored a hit with a 1. Beautiful. The submarine has missed. That comes off the board. We're all happy with that one thus far. Looking up north in sea zone number 10, we are attacking with 2 submarines at 4s and 2 fajitas at 4s. So that's all the brown dice. I use them first. And we have 1 cruiser which attacks at a 5, and we get a roll of a 1 from the aircraft carrier should we need it. Those 4s on the brown dice, and I can see 3 hits out of that, 2, 2 and 4. So as we've wiped out all those guys up there in Italy, they are going to be mashing their teeth in anticipation of what they can do back to us. We get 2 dice at 4 from the destroyers, plus a dice at 1 for the transport ship. 1 in 10 chance of doing something nasty. And we've got 2 hits out of that at the 4s. The Brits can take those on the submarines. Indeed, I think they will. Whilst it looks pretty good for the Brits up there, when the Italians start deploying in there later on, well, anything can happen. Our last attack we're going to be doing is into this mortar convoy zone number 12. We have 2 fighters at 4, and we have our 1 destroyer at 4. We can see the submarine because we got our destroyer there. Submarine defends at a 2. So 4s on these dice, 2 on that dice. Hold your breath, guard your loins. And one of those terrific dice rolls, everybody's missed. So disappointment there for the Brits in 1 place only. So non-combat movements, these guys have all moved. It's just these guys here that haven't made their move. As I mentioned before, once the Brits have dropped off in their transport ships in Malta, they can carry on straight away. And they're going to try to dive off, we think, 1, 2, 3, 4 spaces into sea zone 24. We're definitely going to be taking the fighters, 1, 2, 3, 4 on the carrier. They've had their 1 attempt at glory and, well, failed miserably. And we're going to take in there the 2 transport ships. And it's now, how much reinforcement do we want to bring into here? Because should Italy be attacking this fleet on their turn with their 2 aircraft, they are likely to score 1 or 2 hits. We can take that on our planes expensively, but the transport ships should survive. I think I want to take 1 more of our limping battleships down there for sure. It didn't get involved in the combat. It can go down there as well. Extra protection. It's already a little bit weak as it was. I was thinking very much about using our aircraft versus these guys in Crete in that last combat move, but I think we can save it for 1 more round, because obviously the transport ships aren't here in 31 just yet, and we don't want to take that over there prematurely and lose it. Yeah, I think it's the best choice. I may be wrong with that. The other battleship now, because we don't want to commit too much of our forces over to the eastern side of the map, we can move this battleship back out in the non-combat phase into either the Tunis convoy zone or even into Sea Zone 10. Where do we think we want to go? These aren't hostile at all to us anymore, but we have to move out of there because we said we were going to do that. I actually think, well, that would be nasty. Let's move our battleship into Sea Zone 16, acting as a blocker. We've now got a blockade going around the Italian peninsula. They can't bring their motor fleet back in to protect their deploying units. They're going to have to go through us, but not around us. That'll do. Let's have a now look at the putting our units onto the board in our deploy units phase. We have got our one cruiser, 2 destroyers, and another transport ship. That's the maximum of 3 transport ships at sea at any one time going into there. That'll do for the UK. Let me think about what the Italian reply is going to be. Okay, so Italy on turn number 10. The Brits' actions in the last round have caused me no end of headaches trying to decide what we're going to do. But initially, we have our advance convoys for Italy. They advance these 2 transport ships into Tripoli and they come off the board there. Italy will score 2 points and regain that advantage which the Brits had equalled just now. But it's only going to be temporary, we think. Now, their purchase. I've been shuffling units backwards and forwards in my reinforcement zone, trying to decide how we spend just our 30 RPs. It's only 30 RPs now for Italy. We've come up with this 8, 16, 24 plus 6 for the submarine makes 30 RPs. The Brits don't like the submarines at the moment. They're not being very successful against them. We wanted to get maybe a transport ship, start scoring some more points, try to press home any advantage we can get, with the Brits scoring 2 more points, we think, on the couple of turns later on. But where they are parked themselves into our sea zone number 10, we really have to think about how we get to that to bash it, apart from just deploying straight into there. And we want to really perhaps think, can we hamper this fleet in some way? We're going to be attempting to do that. We're taking one of our cruisers from here in 13, 1, 2, 3, 4. That's going into there to have a bash at the fleet, along with the 2 pieces of air going to go in there as well. It's a very brave mission because of the amount of hitting backness that the Brits have in there. But we have to try something. It's going to take 2 shots to try to get those transport ships taken out because of the absorption that the Brits have in there already. We are also going to be taking our 1 cruiser and our 1 destroyer, getting out of Tripoli convoy zone and popping those into Sea Zone 26. We're putting our 2 fighters into the convoy zone number 12 along with our submarine and trying to take out this 1 destroyer, and this carrier can then move non-com. That is for the finding out. Let's just start there actually. It's the easiest going left to right. It confuses me less and I'm easily confused these days. So for the conduct dice down quietly, in the conduct combat phase, we have got our 2 fighters going in at a 4, and we have our 1 submarine going in at a 4-2. It doesn't matter which colour dice we use for this, it's all at 4s, trying to knock out the Brits in one fell swoop. Someone put these dice in a microwave, please warm them up. That's terrible. The Brits now have got a chance of taking out one of these units here. They're defending at a 4. And they miss as well. That attack didn't happen, ignore all that. The other attack we're going to have, let's just move the dice tray up in focus again with those guys, is this cruiser and this destroyer versus this 1 battleship. So we have a 5 in an attack and a 4 in attack. cruisers attacking at 5. And the cruiser scored a hit, so the British battleship will go under this time. It gets a defensive roll at a 6 and misses. I think the Italians will be more than happy with that. That guy goes out of the equation. And we can now look at the bigger battle, the more involved. Let me just move you along a little bit. We have got, for Italy, we have their bomber going in at a 6, their cruiser going in at a 5, and their fighter going in at a 4. So we do the 6 and the 5 first. 6 on the black dice, 5 on the brown dice, and score 1 hit. And we've now got 1 roll at a 4 as well to take care of from the fajita. It scores a hit. Nice. That's 2 hits off of the Brits. They're going to, I think, because of strength in preserving its aircraft carrier as much as it wants to, I think they're going to take 1 of the hits on the fighter and 1 hit on the battleship. So those 2 will be out of the game next time, but they're going to get their defensive rolls. So the battleship defends at a 6. The 2 fighters defend at 5s. Get me worms right. And we have scored just the 1 hit so far. The aircraft carrier defends at a 2. It fails. And we get 2 at 1 for the transport ships. You never know what they can do. They can both miss. It was close misses though. So, 1 hit off of Italy. I think I need to think about this. These go out of the equation for sure. But if we take it on the bomber, we do less damage into these guys when we try to chase them down into Sea Zone 31. If we leave the bomber naked in Crete, it's vulnerable to the British bomber that's in Cyprus itself. So I think we've got to take it on the bomber here. I really do. Terribly sorry. So the plane has flown 1, 2, it goes 3, 4 back into Crete. This place here remains a hostile sea zone. Okay, bit of an awkward cut and shut moment here. Reason being, my decrepit old camera ran out of recording time at just the worst possible moment I could have thought of. I was further down the line than this. I was having a jolly old time with on the British turn, moving ships around the board, rolling dice, having some great battles, and it's all lost to the sands of time because it wasn't recorded. I've had to do a complete reset. I think I got everything in about the same place that we saw them before. If not, well, these things happen. We're on turn number 10 with the Italian non-combat and then deploy their reinforcements. And part of my ramblings that you never heard from before was what we do with this carrier. Potentially, we could move this 3 spaces up to Sea Zone 23 because it could collect one of these fighter planes that took part in the mortar convoy attack and pick up this 1 plane from Crete as well because it's rather lost down here. Now, it doesn't have the range to do very much. And when the Brits get out down to 31, it can't actually go and collect them. Maybe we should have taken that damage on the fighter, left the bomber in place. It's too late now to be able to sort that one out. But I think because of the amount of hardware that the Brits have got coming through, we really are better off keeping as much power in our local area as we can do. So to that end, we're going to be moving our 1 aircraft carrier 3 spaces, 1, 2, 3, up into Sea Zone number 11 and taking our 2 fighters on board to there. Now, it's not exactly naked, but it's not very strong sat up in there. We are kind of making the Brits an offer which they could refuse, but I think they have to take it on themselves because although if they leave that one in there, it's a power that the Italians would have. So that is the end of the Italian movement phase. We can put their reinforcements on the board, which was 3 destroyers and 1 submarine, all going into Sea Zone 10. It's kind of saying to the Brits, here, get off my land. And we hope that they're going to perhaps come into Sea Zone 11 and have a pop at them and leave this larger number but lesser hitting, I suppose we would suppose they would be at, alone. But I'm not entirely sure what the Brits are going to do. So that's the end of Italia number 10. Next up will be Brits 11. Okay, on with the UK turn number 11, and there's no advanced convoys. It's just a requisition reinforcements for them. They're buying themselves a big boom battleship, cruiser and destroyer, 31 out of 32 RPs that are available on turn number 11. And we can look at the combat movement phase. Now, we have this offer made by Italy. We are going to take that on, but not in the way that we were first thinking about from the Italian side. We're going to be moving in the combat movement phase this carrier and this cruiser, but not into Sea Zone 11. We're going to go 1, 2, 3 into mortar, keep our projection of power in the places where we really need it. So we've now got 1, 2, 3 combat vessels in there. We're taking one of the destroyers that's come all the way from Sea Zone number 3 and the 1 transport ship that's available into there as well. That's now our 4 combat vessels in there, plus 1 transport getting stuck on my fingers. That will be an upcoming battle. We're going to be taking the other 2 vessels that are left over there, which is 1 destroyer and 1 cruiser, all the way through 1, can we see, 1, 2, 3, 4, into Straits of Messina, take on this big carrier, because though that is a more numerically enhanced, it's though there's more units in here, these are the ones that we're more fearful of, because it gives you extra number of units in a sea zone. So as we can take that on, and we can potentially try to block the rest of the fleet again, as I think we did early on in the game in Sea Zone 10, by moving these two into Sea Zone 16, having a pop at these 2 guys in here. It's a slight advantage to the Brits with a 5 and a 4 versus 2 at 4, and taking out 1 Algiers convoy destroyer up into the Sardinia Sea Zone, just up here, and that's going to hopefully pin everybody in like we did before. Those submarine could move through there potentially. It's probably not going to do that. The last combat move we're going to be making is taking our 1 big bomber over onto this cruiser here in Sea Zone 24, and these guys here will be moving non-combat. They're separated away from it. We're going to leave our carrier in here to add to that battle as well, so as we're going to get an extra punch in there just by a smidgen. So let's start rolling some of these battles out. We start off in the mortar convoy zone down here, Sea Zone number 12. We have got, for the UK, and we can see the 1 submarine because we've got a couple of destroyers in there just in case something happens later on. So as we got 1 cruiser goes in at 5, 2 destroyers go in at 4, and 2 planes go in 4. That should be plenty enough without even rolling the aircraft carrier itself. And can we see that on the dice tray? We have scored plenty of hits down there. That submarine goes under. It will get its dying roll at a 2 and misses. We can now look up into Sea Zone number 16, which has been a focus of quite a few hefty fights thus far. And we've got 1 British cruiser going in at a 5 and a destroyer going in at a 4. And both scoring misses. Eek, the defending cruiser is at a 4, as is the destroyer that's there for Italy. And they both miss as well. Okay, so the slightly bigger and braver battle, but we think it's an important battle for the Brits to try to win, is this one in Sea Zone 11. We've got a 5 and a 4 once again for the Brits. 5 on the brown dice, 4 on the black dice. And score just the 1 hit. Italy will probably be taking that on the aircraft carrier, I would think. But it only defends a lesser number. No, we're going to take it on one of the fighters. Italy can probably cover that off later on in a purchase, but they're getting short of money now. I think I think turn 12 they only take on. Let's have a look on my chart. 18 RPs, not very many. We're on turn 11 though anyway, so let's just not get too far in advance of ourselves. The Italian reply from there will be 2 fighters rolling in at a 5, and the aircraft carriers goes in at a 2 in defence. And they've actually scored 2 hits out of that, so both of the UK sea units get knocked out of there. Yeah, maybe I was a bit ambitious there with the Brits. Possibly. That fighter comes off of there as well. So, look at the battle down here into Sea Zone 24. We have the British bomber rolls in at a 6 and scores a hit straight away. No need to roll the other dice from in there. The cruiser for Italy goes in at a 4 in defence and misses entirely. So that is all tidied up down there. That can come off the board. Move Betray out of the way. The fighter lands back onto the carrier, because we did say that was involved in the battle. Possibly could have said no, but we didn't do. The bomber goes back to Cyprus. These 2 transport ships will advance through to Sea Zone 31, out of range of that fighter. We should be quite happy there. And with no more movements to make for the Brits, we can just put on their reinforcements into Sea Zone number 3. And that will be the end of UK's 11th turn. We can look at Italy when I've had a little think about them. So Italy on turn number 11. Their policy seems to be a little bit like a busted flush at the moment, but I'm doing my best for them. I promise you that. I've been faffing around with their reinforcements. There's no advanced convoys. I've been faffing around with their reinforcement purchase, wanting to get perhaps another fighter into Italy so we can get it onto that carrier, protect that later on. But we really can't afford it. We've got to think about scoring some points now, because the Brits are going to get 1 point in front of us at least on the next turn. We're going to get themselves a couple of cruisers and 1 point scoring transport ship, and hope we got enough protection for it to try to make that happen, to give us that protection in our combat movement phase. We're going to be leaving these guys in here to try and bash these 2 guys out of the way. We'll have 1 point advantage, as the Brits did when they tried and failed last time. We're going to take the 1 fighter plane in there with it, figuring that's likely to survive. But we're going to leave the carrier in here, and we're going to bring this fleet down, the 3 destroyers and the 1 submarine, into the mortar convoy zone. Try to really limit what the Brits have left at the end. We don't know how this is going to turn out. We're going to start rolling some dice after I've made the nearly forgot, 1 extra one. Kind of a petulant attack by the Italians here. 1-2, bring the fighter in, just because we can, into that attack down there. And let's now get the dice tray on the board. We'll run the Sea Zone number 12 attack first, where we have our 3 destroyers and the submarine all rolling in at 4s. No surprise strike, because Britain have got the destroyers in place. So it's 4 at 4 for Italy as our first roll. And scored 2 hits out of that. That's quite nice. I think the Brits are likely to take that on the cruiser and the destroyer, because we still want to keep a destroyer in place for later on. So British reply now would be 2 fighters and a cruiser rolling in at 5s, and the 2 destroyers going in at 4s. And there is 3 hits out of that straight, 4 hits out of that straight away. We've wiped out that Italian fleet really too easily. A good dice roll for the Brits. A bad dice roll for Italy. Their policy is falling apart like a cheap suit. If we look at the attack into Sea Zone 16 now, we have for Italy the cruiser at 5 and the destroyer going in at 4s. We dice down quietly. And we have got 0 hits again up there. The Brits as we got the fighter going in at a 4 as well. Nearly forgot. That misses. Shouldn't even bother remembering. The Brits have got 2 guys at 4 in defence, their cruiser and destroyers, and they've scored 1 hit. Really annoying. Really, really annoying. So take that on one of the destroyers there. Yep, I'm getting slightly depressed now for the Italian cause. So the battle down here in Sea Zone 24 is the 1 fighter from Italy rolls in at a 4 and misses. The British fighter can defend at a 5 and miss, and their aircraft carrier defends at a 2 and scores a hit. That's the first carrier hit I think we had in this game. So Italy lose that as well. C'est la vie. That is it as far as the combat's concerned. Non-combat, well, one plane goes back onto the carrier and says, help me, help me. But I think because we didn't move that in the combat phase, we can move that non-com up into there, and the fighter's got enough range to land back on there. And the reinforcements of Italy, well, we're hoping to get some point scoring and some protection. We've done some sort of job here in reducing the Brits down, but it's not a great deal. I was hoping for better than that. Well, yep, hope expectations, yep, okay, maybe some flawed thinking, but that's the way it goes sometimes. That is it for turn number 11 and Italy, and I think plenty enough time for video number 2. Thank you very much for watching. I will see you in video number 3 with the British 12th turn. Till next time, be cool.